Thank to Dr. Maloney and Virginia for here. I come from, it's Granaballangary is the place where I live. And between the two villages where I live, there is called Knockfearna. And the name on that is the Hill of Truth. So that might make you wonder, Chair, why I always tell the truth. Because I live on the Hill of Truth. I love heritage. I love everything to do with our heritage. I'm in construction all my life. In 2018, we rebuilt the old Office on Fish in Kilmallock, which is now the new credit union in Kilmallock. Fantastic project. It went on longer than was anticipated, but the building needed the care to bring it back in to production. And only for the credit union at the time getting that building, they could not stay open during COVID because it gave them the accessibility to a wide area, which was the mailing room in there, and it allowed our staff to be there, which was brilliant to see that. In Limerick, we have conservation officers and the likes of Tom Cassidy and Sarah McCutcheon and them, but the resources aren't there for them. They're not there for them. And I've met with Tom on a regular basis on different projects, and if we have to rebuild our old stock, they have to have the supports that they need. And if somebody falls ill within their job, there is no one there to take on the project, so it sits still and it doesn't go forward. Now, I love old buildings, I love protecting old buildings, but I also have a common sense side to me as well when I look at the likes of some places that are falling down, and the cost of rebuilding certain places is not worth it, as in domestic homes. And I'm talking about streetscapes in towns and villages. And what I'd like to see happening here is, for buildings that have gone so far, and we want to bring new generations into the towns, and also to get eco-friendly houses that they can be better for the environment, is I'd love to see keeping the front facades of buildings, keeping the old roof structure of buildings, and if they need to be made more modern behind that, we'll let that happen. Because if you had an uneconomical repair of a car, you need to have an uneconomical repair of a building, but still keep the face of it on the street, the front facade, the chimney, keep that. But then let the rest of the house, that if it's not worth protecting, if it's a domestic house, no, it's an iconic building, no. I believe our iconic buildings need to be protected. But for those, I have seen places where people went for insurance in their houses, and when you came in the front door, they couldn't get insurance on the first room in a domestic house because it had a timber latch ceiling on it. And the advice was that they had to remove the timber latch ceiling, fireproof it, and put back up the latch ceiling again in its place. But the insurance company would not insure the front part of the building, but if you walked into the next room, which was an extension, a new extension on the rear of the house, they'd insure the house. That we have to try and get rid of. So that's why I'm talking about uneconomical repairs. I'm involved in vintage clubs to celebrate the heritage that we had through vintage machinery, going back from the horse to going back up to the modern day machinery. I'm involved in that, and that's what I do a lot of, doing charity runs to raise money for different charities. But I visit a lot of graveyards, especially in November, and there's a lot of graveyards that are in need of funding to protect them. But again, even if the funding was there, we need the proper groups that will take it on. They have respect within the graveyards. But I have lists of graveyards that are there for 10 and 12 years, where people now cannot come back in and visit their loved ones because they're in dread of a protected structure within the graveyard that has now been fenced off with a metal fence, and there's nothing there, funding there to repair it. And that's very hard. That's as hard as what COVID comes when you can't visit a family member. You might want to go to the grave and sit down inside the grave and have a chat. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's preventing people getting to the graveyards. And that to me is wrong. I'm 100% for biodiversity. I'm 100% for replacing our old stock, and also modern with old stock. The old meeting new, which is great, and it brings people into it, and they can, to get youth involved in heritage, you have to bring it to their level. And how do you bring it to a youth person's level to make it interesting for them? Is show me. So reenactments of different places, history of it, make it fun for them to learn about the heritage that was there. Like if you showed a child today a phone, which isn't that old, and you gave them one with a dialer on it, they'd look at you and they'd say, oh my God, what's this? And they'd wonder, I can't press it. So let's bring them in and bring them back, even to the phone that you had to twist and ring the exchange. It's something, bring them in and give it to them through fun. And then we can drop a seed, and in a year they may come back and they might look for more fun. And that way we teach them about our heritage, because they consider it so backwards that it's enjoyable for them to watch, but they also learn. And I think that is, to me, is a way forward again, we saw recently when the Greenway was opened in Limerick, and the replacement of the houses that were on the Greenway. It's absolutely outstanding of what can be done if you've the right people doing the right work. Now, the question I have for you is, and I go around visiting a lot of old buildings, and people ask me to know how I can help, and the first thing they see is that dread on their face. Oh my God, listed, oh my God, let's keep back. We won't be able to, we'll have to sell our whole place to do it. I was in a premises recently where the roof is off since 1950s to do with rates. Fabulous, iconic building. And I've been looking outside of this country to get investors in to see can we bring back buildings like this in areas, and they're afraid every time they went about doing it, there was a litany of stuff in front of them that they had to come, and the investors ran for the hills. So we've come to a new approach that I'm looking at for people at the moment with iconic buildings, that for investigation purposes, that somebody can go in and clean around it, make a full investigation into what needs to be done to the building, mark all the stones as they are, just clean it around the buildings, then we can take into account where they can get a proper costings on to repair the building as close as can be from doing very minor works to it, but cleaning, and then go to the investors, which can be done under a Section 57, that they can get in and do this. And that we welcome people to come in and do it, but again, people that have respect for the building, that can be on a list, that can go in and respectfully take on these buildings. That we then, as a country, if the government or the heritage can't support this, that we can actually bring in investors from outside of this country that will want to do this, that might want to reopen it back out to the public, to let the public back in to see such buildings. So what I want from today is I want a contact person to come to help me, guide me, and cut through the red tape so I can replace a lot of the iconic buildings and structures and fences and walls, that we can all work together, but to move forward without having a wall put up in front. The understanding, or if you come up with something that I can try and see can it be simplified so we can all move forward and get more buildings protected. So that's what I want from today, is I want a contact from yourselves to me directly. I'd love for you to come and see one or two of the buildings that I have in mind. And I will guarantee you that we will get the investors in there to replace a lot of the fantastic, like we have Adair, we have Croom, we have Kilmallock 14th century, we have Skeeton. We have all these places that have fantastic buildings around them. And we're not showing them all off. You might just get one or two that can be shown off. There's ones that can be actually shown that are absolutely mind-blowing for the next generation. So I'd love if I could meet you or contact, and we open up a communication so we can all work together and move forward. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy. And I suppose your passion for heritage is very obvious from the inputs you've had, and also I suppose the pragmatic background in construction, which makes you understand the challenges in this. There's no doubt that there are costs associated with rebuilding some old properties in towns and villages, and I suppose the government's new policy about moving to town centres first will hopefully improve the economic argument in that space. And I suppose the Heritage Council has been very active involved in the collaborative town centre health checks to see what needs to happen in towns to try and ensure they come back to being vibrant places again. There's no doubt that it can be a challenging area, but as we had in the earlier interaction, I think any building that's there is now, it's better to try and bring it back, rehabilitate and refurbish something that's there already from a climate action perspective than trying to build from the new. The comments you made in relation to graveyards are certainly good, and it's an area that we do fund initiatives under the Heritage Officers Programme for the rehabilitation of graveyards where there's active community engagement with it. And I suppose that goes back to the point that Virginia raised around the local leadership. We're very good to work with people who work with us. And the comments you make on youth and heritage are really well said and interesting, and I suppose we all need to ensure that our love of heritage is transmitted to the next generation as well. Just in terms of the specifics of providing you with the contact, you can be assured that the Heritage Council will be in touch with you directly to see what areas of work we might potentially be able to collaborate on. And it was my personal privilege, and indeed Virginia was with me, to be in Kilmallock a couple of years ago for the Irish Wall Towns Network annual conference, and we saw the wonderful work that had been done there by Sarah McCutcheon and the group in developing the walls and rehabilitating them. And it just goes to show what can be achieved over time where you have committed people in place. So I don't know, Virginia, is there anything you want to add?
Just to add, Deputy, that as the chairperson has said, we've done a lot of work with Kilmallock, with Sarah and the Wall Towns Network, and in fact I visited Limerick last September, and I met with the heritage officers, both the city and county, and Sarah and other people working in heritage, and the director of services and the mayor of Limerick as well. We had a very good engagement around their new county development plan. I know Knockfearna. I lived in Limerick. I don't know whether you know that. I worked in Limerick for 6 years at the Hunt Museum, so it's a bit of a second home. Knockfearna and Knockgur, so I know those sites well, a beautiful part of the country, and we'll be happy to visit you there, Deputy, at any time. Thank you.